Before we start this video, I think it's important to understand what a third space, or third place as it's sometimes called, really is. It's essentially a place that isn't your home or your place of work. It's the bar or pub in your local town. It's the park or mall where you hung out with your childhood friends. It's a club, a church, a coffee shop, a gym, or a library. Essentially, it's wherever you spend your time for leisure. That's a third space. It's a place that lets people be people. The thing is, of course, this doesn't just include physical spaces and locations, it's also digital ones, because wherever people congregate, that's where their third space is. By this same point, a game can very much be a third space. Losing a third space in your life sucks. If you've ever walked around a town with a derelict main street or boardwalk, then you know what that feels like. Third spaces are spaces where you can be yourself and meet other people who are like you. Losing a video game like Destiny is exactly the same in that regard. It's losing a third space. But you see, it is also a little bit more than losing just a normal third space, because it's a third space that's been around for over a decade. Destiny is a special game to a lot of us, even if it was, and still is, highly flawed. I've seen people talking about Destiny 1 who describe it as the best 6 out of 10 game ever, and yeah, honestly, I understand that description. Because Destiny, for so many of us, was a game that felt like home. It was a game that brought people together, and of course, it was a game that deserved more than this. To people outside of Destiny as a community, I need you to understand that yes, I get that this seems alien. There's a reason why there's a serious outpouring of what can best be described as grief. It's the reason why people are angry, in denial, and at a loss to explain what to do. For some of you, maybe the best parallel or explanation of it is if you think about what would happen if your favorite sports team was disbanded, or if your place of worship closed, or if the bar you go to regularly was burnt down and can't be rebuilt. The emotional loss is similar to that. You think of all the things that you did in that place, all the good times you had, all the friends you made, all the experiences that spawned from it. And ultimately, yeah, Destiny is exactly that. We saw Destiny as a hobby. Some lucky few amongst our cohort even made a full career out of it, myself included. But it was more than that, because it was a hobby that we shared together. And what's more, whilst there were a lot of problems we would rightly level at the developers as critique, it's hard to doubt the value proposition of Destiny as a product and a hobby generally. I have over 9,000 hours on Destiny 2 since Shadowkeep launched in 2019. Considering how much I'd been playing the game prior to this point, I think it's not hard to imagine that across my entire Destiny career I have something like 15,000 hours in the game. And of course that does include a fair bit of time in orbit, but who doesn't have those numbers? I can scarcely think of a game that's given me that much value for playtime in just 7 years. And I say 7 because, again, that's just the Steam number since Shadowkeep. I don't even know what the real number is that totals up everything since 2014, and technically earlier if you include betas, alphas, and pre-alphas. The best part about it from my perspective, though, was that I got to be a part of a universe where I felt like I belonged. This place, it felt like home. And I don't just mean a universe in the sense that it was a fictional setting. There are lots of fictional settings. You can feel like you belong in one, but only one that feels right. It's why some games have loyalists, even to the very end, because that's just what they enjoy. But it's also where they see themselves. It's their third space. And Destiny was not just a universe where it was a storied universe, or one where there were a lot of people. It was a universe with a story that was constantly moving forward and progressing. It was also as much our story as it was the story of the Vanguard and the Hive Gods and the Fallen Houses and the Cabal Empire and the Last City and the Guardians. Bungie made a world for us to explore, and they put their stamp on that world and told us to make it our own, to inhabit it. And inhabit it we did. Content creators, artists, voice actors, game developers, and so many others not only found their feet in Destiny, but also became professionals on the back of the world that Destiny created. I still remember being a part of the original group of 4 or 5 YouTubers that really cracked into the space at first and made a name for themselves as far back as the Destiny 1 Alpha. Datto and I are still around out of those lot. Others have moved on, but for a time, we all shared this space, and we made it our place of work, our place for fun, and a place that felt like home. And speaking from a purely narrative standpoint, this world was filled with so much potential. Destiny 1's awful story is what's commonly remembered by people, and rightly so, it wasn't good. But the reality is that that story belied the universe beneath all of this. The universe that over the 10 years of the Light and Dark saga, and the one short year of the Fate saga, was slowly picked apart and unraveled further. A universe that was magical. A universe where literally anything could happen. Sure, to some who only experienced the barest form of story, it wasn't much. But for someone who dug into the kernels of lore, which weren't exactly hidden, man, this place truly was special. It was a universe that, yeah, maybe it wasn't as approachable, but the heart of it all, God, it was magnificent. The universe of Destiny was a place with dragons and queens and kings and pirates and sorcerers and gods. But equally, it was a place filled with technology and spacefaring craft and cyborgs and artificial intelligences and superweapons and futuristic firearms. It was a place where the familiar met the strange in this beautiful kind of concert. It was a place where the mundane crossed paths with the legendary, just to tip their hats at each other. It was a universe where quite literally anything could reasonably exist. And it was all squandered. I don't think I need to go over the ruinous leadership of Bungie that constantly held back its development team, that constantly ignored that development team as they begged them to listen to the community, that constantly used that development team as a shield from the complaints of gamers at large. I don't think I need to go over the many lawsuits, allegations, scandals, and other catastrophes that beset the studio and its higher-ups. There are already dozens and dozens of videos on these topics, and there are others within the industry who will be able to touch on those issues with a far more succinct summary of all the wrongs committed than I will be able to here. The one thing I will focus on is the greed, and how the greed of it all pushed them to take from Destiny and not give back, and to take Destiny for granted. Destiny, which for over a decade was the only revenue source for the studio. Destiny, which they assumed would go on making money forever, even after the continuous litany of decisions that slowly sapped the player base bit by bit. And players could feel and see that in real time. First it was support for the Crucible, then it was Gambit, then it was getting fewer and fewer raids and dungeons year by year, and eventually, it seemed like everything was being slowly picked apart. I made a script years ago that I never released fully, and it was about tracking this decline by the most me-coded thing imaginable. Lore tabs. Using ishtarcollective.net, I could see how much was being written expansion by expansion, and I could get the sense for how the teams were slowly being stretched thinner and thinner and thinner. When Destiny 2 Forsaken released, we had a ton of lore books, I believe 8 at the very release of it, and so many entries within those books and so many lore tabs within the world, all of them detailing every aspect of this brilliant place. Fast forward to Renegades, and we have significantly fewer. Fewer lore tabs across less gear, less items, less things to collect, and of course, lorebook-wise, we have just one. To make it really clear, I don't view this as the fault of the narrative team. What team is hired to do a job, such as narrative and building out a world like this, that doesn't want to write these things? No, I think their hands on all of these things were tied. And quite frankly, they were tied because there weren't as many people assigned to work on Destiny as there were back in the day. The staffing for Destiny slowly trickled downward year after year as more studio personnel was siphoned away for more and more incubation projects. The result couldn't just be seen or counted, but as a player, I believe it could be felt. There were moments where the Herculean efforts of the studio shone through, and moments where it seems like they weren't at their best. Now, all these years later, I wonder if that isn't partly because sometimes they were essentially fighting with one hand behind their back. Inevitably, the topic of Marathon is going to come up, and I should say that I don't think I fully blame Marathon for Bungie's decline, and for the death of Destiny. At the end of the day, spinning up a new game and getting a second revenue source was always going to be an eventual path forward for Bungie. What I don't think was a good idea was spinning up 5 incubation projects, including Marathon and 4 others that were eventually canned at the cost of millions upon millions of dollars. And of course, all of that was done to inflate the potential value of Bungie, a studio that was then valued at $3.6 billion by Sony, a studio that they purchased, a studio that then started to collapse because all of its resources had been drained out into these wasteful projects. Projects that mostly collapsed, or were subsumed into Sony, or simply never saw the light of day. Leadership led this great studio astray, and now it's become easy prey for grifters on Twitter and naysayers across the industry, and people who didn't care about it as anything more than a proverbial industry-wide punching bag. A cautionary tale about the ills of live services, which in some ways was warranted, but which also pays no heed to the developers who were genuinely still trying to make an amazing game, and who were trying their best day by day. As players, we deserved more than this, and as developers, the staff at Bungie, the people who actually made Destiny instead of profiting fully from it, they deserved more than this. We deserved leaders who led from the front, took accountability for their actions, broke bread with their players and employees, and who placed their role as custodians of our shared world above their selfish desires, or the pressure to prop up a balance sheet for shareholders. We deserved more because this universe was full of stories that still needed to be told. It was a place still full of so much wonder. Off the top of my head, we never got to learn about the return of the dragons, the machinations of the Witch Queen, the battle between Keitel and Zivor-Arath, the eventual story of whatever the winnower might do, or the fate of the Nine. There are dozens of small lore threads going forth that eventually might have led somewhere, but which ultimately now will lead nowhere. There are so many plot threads to Destiny's story that have been left hanging and unanswered. All we can do now is hope and wonder what might have been, and potentially wait and see what the narrative team has done to try and leave them in an interesting and viable place should the IP move forward in the future. For me, at very least, the hope for Destiny is that there will be some kind of miraculous recovery. That there will be some kind of Destiny game, even if it isn't Destiny 3 in the future, that does get greenlit. There are of course other plans for everyone to log in on June 9th, and the small effort that you can make in signing those petitions that are going around to save the game. They are something. A limited and fleeting means by which we can actually have some kind of recourse, and can give our opinions. For what it's worth, I think they're both worth doing, even if it's unlikely that they make a difference. I do fear that in all likelihood that is all we can do. We can only rage against the dying of the light. My ultimate fear then, and the future that you and I will probably be sharing with this, is that we'll need to either find a new third space or build one for us as a larger, wider community. I already took the first steps towards that on Patreon if you're interested, by the way. You can register for free too if you're so inclined. No need to spend money if you're low on funds. For now though, this is the start of the end. And my promise to you is that I've decided that I will still make some Destiny lore content, albeit not as regularly. This is a universe that I want to return to. It's a universe that deserves to live on. And I think it's something that only stays alive for as long as we can keep it alive, for as long as our love and passion for it is still there. I intend to ensure that we can continue to explore it together, with the more complete base of knowledge that I now have from all my years of exploration. I feel like I'm one of the only people left who can guide you all. And my hope is that we can pass that brighter torch of knowledge onward, and we can all appreciate this place where we all sat around and complained about the drop rates of exotics, complained about the balance passes that were bringing up these strange and sometimes boring metas, where we can laugh at the Tiger engine and its ridiculous slew of bugs, where we can marvel at how this community raised millions for charity over its span of time, where for a lucky few like myself you can even find a partner and fall in love and get married. Destiny, for the larger part of my life, has given me something to live for, something to dream in, a place where I can not just be my name is Bife, but where I can inhabit the world of my guardian. One day I may even tell that story, because as far as I'm concerned, there are interesting tales to be told with every guardian, and you've never heard the tale of Tarsonis Garrett, or his ghost Strauss, or the people that accompanied him, or the trials that he underwent, because that's the kind of power of a universe like Destiny. You can see yourself in it. And even though it's no longer getting any updates or any more content, even though the IP is likely to be shelved by Sony, it is still a marvelous place where we can all live on. For the immediate future though, I do have a few things that are planned. Not all of these are around Destiny. The first thing is unfortunately timed. I have a sponsored video with another game that's coming up. It's called Once Human, and I intend to get that out this week because that's when our planned release date for that is. In that same vein, I have another video that I'll hold on to for a little bit, which is a marathon video. I'm holding that one until June 2nd, when the other season of Marathon starts. But expect marathon content to take a bit of a break, while I go back to focus on Destiny after June 9th. I also have other big projects coming up on Patreon, which is something that I've taken the time to do a full update for, and it's now ready if anyone wants to come along and support. The next mega video that I'll be creating is going to be a video on Baldur's Gate 3, a story that I think is worth telling. If any of that is of interest to you, please stick around. I'll personally be here until the lights go out, and even for some time after that. But in the meantime, know that your viewership, as always, has been quite enough for me, and that my name is Bife. It's the end of an era. It's no longer going to be per audacia ad astra through bravery to the stars. Instead, we have reached those stars. Now we need to look further. Now, this is the age of looking to the stars and beyond. Ad astra et ultra. My name is Bife. I'll see you starside.